On August 30, 2025, the U.S. Supreme Court delivered a decisive blow in a case that captured the nation's attention and sent shockwaves through the political and economic landscape. The ruling directly targeted former President Donald Trump's ambitious and controversial tariff strategy, a plan he had championed as a way to reshape America's role in global trade. The Supreme Court's decision blocked Trump's attempt to use sweeping emergency powers to impose tariffs on a wide range of imports, a move that had been a cornerstone of his economic agenda and a key promise to his supporters. At the heart of the case was a fundamental constitutional question. Can a president unilaterally declare a national emergency and use that as justification to bypass Congress and impose tariffs, effectively reshaping trade policy with the stroke of a pen? Trump and his legal team argued that this authority was not only legal but essential to protect American industries from what they described as unfair foreign competition and to safeguard national security. However, critics, including lawmakers from both parties, economists and business leaders, warned that such unchecked power could destabilize the economy, spark trade wars, and undermine the constitutional balance between the executive and legislative branches. The court's decision, therefore, was about much more than just tariffs. It was a landmark ruling on the separation of powers, reinforcing the idea that no single branch of government should have unchecked authority over critical economic decisions. By rejecting Trump's use of emergency powers in this context, the Supreme Court set a powerful precedent that will likely constrain future presidents, making it clear that Congress must have a say in major trade decisions. The immediate impact was significant. Trump's sweeping tariff plan was effectively dead, bringing a wave of relief to industries and workers who had feared the economic fallout of a potential trade war. Yet, even as the dust settles, the larger debate over how America should handle trade, and, crucially, who gets to make those decisions, remains unresolved, ensuring that this issue will continue to shape the nation's political and economic future for years to come. Donald Trump famously dubbed himself the Tariff Man, a nickname that captured his bold and unconventional approach to international trade. Throughout his presidency, Trump made it clear that he believed tariffs were a powerful tool to protect American interests and industries. He championed tariffs as a way to reduce the persistent U.S. trade deficit, arguing that by making imported goods more expensive, he could encourage Americans to buy products made at home, thereby reviving U.S. manufacturing and supporting American workers. By imposing tariffs, Trump aimed to make foreign goods pricier, hoping this would shift consumer demand toward domestic alternatives. The idea was that higher prices on imports would level the playing field for American companies, giving them a better chance to compete. To move quickly, Trump often bypassed Congress, citing national security concerns and using his executive powers to implement tariffs. This allowed him to act decisively, but also sparked controversy. Critics argued that this approach sidestepped Congress's constitutional authority over trade policy, raising questions about the balance of power and the long-term impact of such unilateral decisions. Tariffs on products like washing machines were intended to boost U.S. jobs and manufacturing, but they also led to higher prices for consumers, sparking debate over whether the benefits outweighed the costs. Trump's broader strategy was to use tariffs as leverage in tough trade negotiations, especially with China, aiming to force better deals and address issues like intellectual property theft and unfair trade practices. This aggressive, confrontational strategy marked a sharp break from decades of U.S. trade policy, which had generally favored lowering trade barriers and promoting free trade around the world. The result was a high-stakes gamble that not only reshaped America's global economic relationships, but also sparked a worldwide debate about the future of trade, protectionism, and economic nationalism. Trump's tariffs on Canada sparked rare bipartisan opposition in Congress. Many Republicans joined Democrats, arguing tariffs on a close ally would harm vital economic ties. Lawmakers worried about disrupting supply chains, especially in industries like autos and agriculture. Farmers feared Canadian retaliation, risking key export markets. The pushback revealed a deep divide. Trump saw trade as a zero-sum game, while many in Congress valued open markets with allies. The Senate's resistance showed presidential power has limits, even within his own party. Senators prioritized their constituents' economic interests over party loyalty. This episode exposed cracks in support for Trump's economic nationalism. It signaled that future unilateral tariffs would face not just legal but political obstacles. Investor Kevin O'Leary weighed in, blasting Trump's idea to send tariff rebate checks to Americans. O'Leary called it fiscally reckless, arguing tariff revenue should address the ballooning national debt. With interest payments soaring, he warned that short-term rebates ignore the real crisis. O'Leary likened it to splurging while drowning in credit card debt. Pay down what you owe first. He believes Americans would rather see long-term fiscal responsibility than a fleeting handout. O'Leary's stance highlights a key debate. Should government windfalls go to immediate relief or future stability? He urged policymakers to focus on debt reduction for the nation's long-term health. His voice added urgency to calls for caution and discipline in economic policy. Legal challenges to Trump's tariff plans centered on whether emergency powers can be used for routine trade disputes. Opponents argued laws like IEPA were meant for true crises, not trade disagreements with allies. Lower courts ruled Trump exceeded his authority, saying the economic situation didn't justify emergency action. Judges warned that letting presidents declare economic emergencies at will would upend the balance of power. The Constitution gives Congress, not the president, the power to regulate foreign commerce. Businesses faced chaos, unsure if tariffs would suddenly hit their supply chains. The case highlighted both constitutional stakes and real-world disruption. The court's rebuke set the stage for a Supreme Court showdown. The legal battle over Trump's tariffs was a roller coaster for businesses and diplomats. It was a saga that unfolded with unexpected twists and turns, leaving many stakeholders on edge. The stakes were high, and the uncertainty was palpable. After a lower court blocked the tariffs, an appeals court briefly reinstated them, creating confusion. This back and forth left businesses scrambling to adjust their strategies, unsure of what the next day would bring. The appeals court's temporary stay didn't endorse Trump's arguments but allowed tariffs while the case proceeded. This decision was a temporary reprieve for some but a source of anxiety for others as the legal battle continued to unfold. This legal limbo left trade partners and companies in suspense. Many were left wondering how to navigate the uncertain waters of international trade, as the rules seemed to change with each court decision. Ultimately, the appeals court sided with the lower court, again blocking the tariffs. This decision was a significant blow to the administration's efforts, but it was not the end of the road. With 2 losses, the administration appealed to the Supreme Court, raising the stakes. The case was now set to become a defining moment in the legal landscape, with implications that could reach far beyond the immediate issue at hand. The case became a landmark test of presidential emergency powers in trade. It was a question of how far executive authority could stretch in the realm of international commerce, and the answer would have lasting consequences. Legal experts, business leaders, and foreign governments watched closely, knowing the outcome would shape future policy. The world was watching, and the pressure was on for the Supreme Court to deliver a decisive ruling. The Supreme Court's decision would define the limits of executive authority in trade. It was a moment of truth, a decision that would echo through the halls of power and influence the course of trade policy for years to come. The Supreme Court's ruling reasserts Congress's primacy in trade policy. Future presidents will need to work with lawmakers, not rely on emergency declarations for tariffs. The decision checks decades of growing executive power over trade. It signals that presidential authority, especially in commerce, has clear limits. For businesses and allies, this means more stability and predictability in U.S. trade policy. Companies can plan ahead without fear of sudden, unilateral tariffs. The debate over protectionism versus free trade continues, but the rules have changed. Now Congress will take center stage in shaping America's trade future. The Supreme Court clarified how trade policy is made, leaving the what and why to the people and their representatives.